Samara, if you could start. Thank you. And so, ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome to the FMMP Executive Board session for October. This evening, we have a wonderful event. We have an opportunity to sit and talk to one of our Army's most senior leaders, to have the opportunity to hear his thoughts on how the Army is going to improve the quality of life of our soldiers, our civilians, and then how we can emphasize and enhance and develop our future leaders to understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. With that, I wanted to sir, before I even go into that, what we always do every evening, every time we have a session, is we pray. We pray to our whatever entity we want to choose to. We don't tell anyone to choose their own religion or have them do a certain religion. So what we would like to do before we do anything else is we would have a prayer over this session to have a great session. And Delia, if I could ask you to do that, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, Father, first and foremost, we thank you for allowing us to be here this evening. We thank you for the platform that you've allowed us to establish, Father God, to bring leaders together for a purpose that is to be able to help others to grow in their ministry, to grow in their professional development, and to grow as great leaders, Father God. We ask right now that you bless this evening session, allow those who have attended or who are attending to receive something that they can use to enhance their lives and the lives of others. Thank you for this evening. Thank you for the guests that are here. And we thank you for the special honor to have our Deputy Undersecretary of the Army join us for this session. We ask all these blessings and more blessings in your son's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have the opportunity to hear some great and wonderful words of wisdom, not only from our Deputy Undersecretary of the Army, but also former colonel and commander who served in combat before. With that, I want to introduce you all to Mr. Mario Diaz. Mr. Diaz has the opportunity to shape our Army, shape our civilian lives, our military lives, and is passionate about ensuring that everyone is afforded equal opportunities, the opportunities to be included in the sessions that have a voice to improve our quality of life, as well as the leaders that come behind us in the generations. And so with that, sir, before we get started, I'd like to tell you who's in our room tonight. And if anyone else has joined in, forgive me if I didn't catch your name as we were doing this, but sir, I'd like to let you know we have Ms. Marion Wicker, who is the Executive Deputy to the Commanding General of Army Materiel Command. We have Major General Braden Camp, who is the, Delia, you have to give me that entire title again. I love it.
The Commanding General of the Joint Task Force, National Capital Region, and the Military District of Washington.
I let her introduce him because that's her boss, and I love the fact that that's her new boss. All right, so we also have Brigadier General retired Ann McDonald, who is the Army Women's Foundation president, who just happened to host the Women's Foundation Leader Symposium at the AUSA, which we had a wonderful turnout. And we also have Mr. Honorable Mark Benton, who's the CASA from San Francisco. And so if I missed anyone this evening because you came on and I didn't get a chance to catch your name, please accept my apologies. Take it to my head, not my heart. It is in here. We will recognize you as the evening goes on. But sir, with that, your time is valuable. And I know so many people have dialed in. So we have people that dial in that have rooms of individuals. So you may see one name, but that name may have an auditorium or a conference room of people sitting and listening to you as you speak. So I just want you to know that we have a number of people that join in to hear your sessions and all of our sessions monthly. And so with that, sir, I would like to turn it over to you. Again, I thank you so much for joining us, and the floor is yours. Sir, if you're speaking, I can't hear you yet. There you go. You're off mute now.
Great. I have my great XO helping me drive. So we've got two mute buttons. So I just have to make sure that we take them off, both of them. So sorry about that. But Delia, Mari, thank you so much for your leadership and collectively the effort that you put into this type of forum, and what you've done thus far is so impressive, admirable, and really what right looks like. So I just wanted to lead off with that. And I also am so grateful grateful to hear and so excited that we've got Marion Wicker on, Trevor Bredenkamp, Mark. It is so great to, that you're participating as well, and Brigadier General Ann McDonald. So this is like a full circle moment for me, and one of the things that I was actually going to talk about a little bit later, after the comments on diversity and embracing diversity, was to talk a little bit about mentorship, specifically how males need to and are responsible for mentoring females, and vice versa. And for those of you that think that this is something that I don't have too much experience in, I actually do, and I have it on from both perspectives, because then Lieutenant Colonel Ann McDonald was my battalion commander when I was infantry company Pathfinder commander in the 6th 101st Aviation Brigade. So this is something that's been important to my career. I've benefited from the leadership of great female leaders and mentors, and I've tried to return that aspect of responsible leadership in my role in both uniform and now as a senior civilian political appointee. So again, for me, this is very special, not just because it's an opportunity to talk about one of my leadership passions, but because it's an opportunity to reconnect and in some ways pay back so much that's been given to me throughout my 30 plus years of uniform and civilian service. So this particular night, what I'd like to do is talk about a couple of things that the team asked me to speak directly about, and then also talk a little bit about leadership and mentorship, and then provide ample opportunity for questions and dialogue, because I think that's really where the great utility of these types of forums are, and that we get an opportunity to share ideas, have a Socratic discussion, and really advance the dialogue on topics that are so important to our Army and arguably to our nation. So two areas that I really want to speak about tonight are, and what I was asked to talk about, so I want to talk about that specifically, are leaders endorsing and leaders enforcing diversity. And then after that, for a few minutes, I'm going to pivot to my thoughts on some leadership and mentorship, how to make a positive difference in the current state that we find ourselves in, and how to continue to evolve and improve our leadership techniques and our organizational positive command climates. I think that it's become an accepted truism that expanding opportunities because of our inclusion of diverse populations, subgroups, and underrepresented communities really is a truism. And when we broaden our talent pool, we don't only increase the awareness, but we also expand opportunities for those that haven't had the opportunities in the past to make a difference, to contribute positively to an organization, and ultimately to live out their best lives and make a difference in a way that only the opportunities that were closed to them, when they are open, they can really make that difference. I also think that that when we talk about the leaders endorsing diversity, it's really just a manifestation of our, what I would call our national birth certificate, our Constitution, which begins with the phrase that we're all familiar with: "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union." When we talk about that more perfect union, it's something that we can trace in a longitudinal way from the start of our country through the challenges and tribulations that went through the Civil War, Reconstruction, the early 20th century, the travesty of Jim Crow, and other types of biases and unbelievable institutional racism that were a part of our country, but continually improving and continually getting better and being more inclusive. And we see that still today. And, to paraphrase, we haven't gotten to the perfect place, but we're continually getting better, and we're continually endorsing and including more of underrepresented communities. And that is because we as an organization not only are tied to and support and defend our Constitution and what is contained in it, but our values also allow us to, and ultimately charge us to, be more perfect in a sense of being more inclusive. These aspects, again, are something that I fully endorse in a way that not just because of my position, but because I've been the benefactor and have really been able to maximize my potential by the opportunities that were presented to me. And those opportunities were because of opportunities that in the past were maybe not necessarily available to everybody. And then therefore, if I was born 50 years earlier, may not have been able to achieve some levels of either success or the opportunities to pass on that success to others. And so therefore, it's something that is a personal passion of mine. And when we talk about the aspect of enforcing diversity, I think it's an interesting point of differentiation between endorsing and enforcing. And I look forward to, during the question and answer period, how all of you perceive that subtle but critical difference when we talk about endorsing and enforcing diversity. Because in some ways, there may be a perception that enforcing diversity is not necessarily something that is capable or a requirement of leaders and commanders. And I would push back on that. I think actually that is a requirement of our leaders and commanders to enforce diversity and enforce the policies and enforce the opportunities that we have currently, and we're continuing to refine as part of our Army, as part of our government, and as part of our nation. And the really way that I justify that, and I've always looked at it this way, and as a young officer, I was told before taking command in different organizations, go to the base principles, go to the base documents, and the one that is the most important for this particular idea or this particular discussion is U.S. Code, it's Title 10 U.S. Code 7233. And those of you that have been in command one time or multiple times understand what this particular portion of Title 10 addresses. It's the requirement for exemplary conduct for commanding officers and others in leadership positions. And it goes on to talk about how those individuals who are selected for command or who serve in leadership positions must exude and conduct themselves in a manner that provides good example, honor, patriotism, subordination, be vigilant about those that are placed underneath their command, guard against and suppress certain activities, and correct according to the laws and regulations. It ends in a very important way. And it ends in a way that I think we really need to make sure that we focus on, because a lot of times we focus on mission accomplishment, but we forget that we have other statutory responsibilities. And I'll quote when it says, commanders and leaders in responsible positions need to take all necessary and proper measures under the laws, regulations, and customs of the Army to promote and safeguard the morale, the physical well-being, and the general welfare of the officers and enlisted persons under their command or charge. So when we talk about those particular words and we pull them apart a little bit and make sure we understand completely what we're talking about, when we look at and analyze the word morale, morale is not to be conflated with or confused with the term fun. It's actually, not addressing going to the MWR and renting camping equipment or those types of things. It means about responsible leadership and providing purpose and a sense of inspiration, and creating an inclusive environment where individuals can thrive in a meaningful way. And I think that if we look at it from that perspective, it is very clear that there's an expectation for leaders to enforce the policies and the spirit of our diversity regulations, diversity opportunities, those ideas contained in our policies that address inclusion and other activities associated with those. So we shouldn't shy away from it, because it is an actual responsibility for commanders. And especially when we talk about more senior commanders and the tone that they set and the opportunities of that they ensure of protecting and safeguarding the morale of their large and immense organizations of very much diverse individuals, especially again, as you get into more senior ranks, the diversity of not just racial and ethnic backgrounds, but diversity of age and generations, diversity of sexual orientation, diversity of geographic orientation and background, even thought and perspective. And so it's so critical of commanders to ensure that they hold that under their charge and not just focus on mission accomplishment. So that aspect of it, I think, is something that will be fruitful in the question and answers, and maybe we can discuss it a little bit more, because the more we have meaningful and frank dialogue on this, the more it's clearly understood, and the more that we can advance it in a manner that everybody will understand in a clear way. I'm going to pivot a little bit to some thoughts on leadership and mentorship. And all of you have different reasons for taking part in this dialogue or this discussion tonight. You know, there's different stages that you're in your leadership journey. Some of you are junior members of the organization, and you're looking for different ways to hone or improve your leadership or your ability to make a difference. Some of you are mid or more senior, and you're already in the role of mentors, and you're looking for a way to improve your mentorship skills and communication to ensure that you can be as effective as possible in your current or near future roles. And some of us are a little bit more on the longer side of the relationship here, and we realize that we still may have some leadership responsibilities. They may not be as enduring or as lengthy as they used to be. So we may only have a few years left, or however long it may be. But it is important to us to, at this phase, that folks like myself, to ensure that we're passing along and we're allowing for others to continue, just like we tried to during our time on the watch, make a difference and pass along the different ideas, different priorities, and ultimately the success that others have passed on to us. So I realize that we're in different phases, but when we talk about leadership, I want to really focus on two aspects that don't probably get a lot of attention, but as we continue to lead our organizations and our Army into the 21st century, I think two characteristics of leadership are critically important and will continue to gain importance as we advance and move, like, again, further into the 21st century. And the first one is empathy. And the quality of empathy, especially as a leadership quality, has been discussed, and I think I've heard some folks speak to it, but it's more spoken in terms of a level of understanding or a level of being able to have certain types of perspective that allows for increased awareness, which is great. And I do think that is important, but I'm speaking in empathy in terms of it being a positive catalyst to the organization, linked directly to the point I made with regards to morale. Because I think those two aspects of a commanders or leaders' qualities really bookend the aspect of how they make that organization feel as a collective organization, the morale that they have, and the individuals of having empathy for what every individual in that organization is about, whether it's in terms of how you demonstrate that through your day-to-day activity, through how you treat others, how you recognize their value. And I think it really is a positive catalyst to that any organization if you have leadership that is focused on not just mission accomplishment, like I said, but being empathetic towards what their formation or what their organization has to do, how they have to do it, and what they're going through to accomplish that mission. It really provides a level of reflective energy back to the organization when they know that their leader or leadership is leading with empathy. The second aspect that I think is an important leadership characteristic that doesn't get enough attention, and it's directly related to the aspect of how we promote and how we endorse diversity, is the quality of advocacy. And sometimes when we look at and talk about the phrase advocacy and what it means to be an advocate, it may get conflated with other types of terms and other ways that we provide our endorsement for either a cause or an activity. And that's not what I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about the responsibility and an active way that along the leadership spectrum, and that spectrum really starts with mentorship, goes to a level of sponsorship, and then also includes advocacy. And I think that if we don't have leaders who understand their role for being advocates for individuals, then we're missing out on the responsibilities of what leaders can do and how they can make a difference. And I think it's critically important when we're talking about embracing diversity that we fully accept the fact that we have to be advocates for not just those that are maybe of the same background or same racial, ethnic background or experience or geographic background. We have to be able to step out of that and be able to advocate for those across the multiple spectrums of individuals that we have in our formations, in our organizations, and truly hold up the best of the best, because they need advocates that can transcend their current position or their current view on who they have within the organization. So when we talk about mentorship, I think it's very clear about what a mentor is and how that relationship and what it means about passing on advice, about helping navigate circumstances in between the mentor and the mentee relationship. When we talk about sponsorship, I think that is a much more active role that in some ways allows for a level of pulling somebody up to the next level of it's an active participation from the sponsor that allows the expansion of the mentee to the next level, and that sponsorship or critical activities associated with that are really allowing that mentee to make connection to other people, make connections outside of the organization, and therefore allowing them to improve. Being an advocate, though, I think is something that we should all strive for, and it's an important component of the way we conduct our mentorship. And that is putting your own personal capital on the line and saying that the person that you are advocating for is the right person. And therein sometimes lies a risk, but that's what leadership is sometimes. It is actively, either through word or through communication and other activities, standing up for the individual, highlighting their strengths, and making sure that they are brought to the level of attention that needs to be to get their awareness and thereby increasing, if necessary, their promotion capability or other aspects of that. Being an advocate, like I said, involves some level of risk, and that's what we have to be able to do, because not every time the mentee will be able to achieve certain aspects of what the advocate is pushing for, but they have to have that level of confidence that they're doing it for the right reasons. So again, when we talk about the spectrum of mentorship and sponsorship and advocacy, I think we need to add advocacy as a 21st century leadership competency that we should be aware of. One last point I'd like to talk about, because I think it's critically important, is the idea of, and really encouraging as best possible, how we can make sure that we have more males mentoring females in the workplace and in formations in our organizational elements and in even in activities like this. I feel honored to be asked to speak with this group, to be a participant. I consider myself now just one of another great photos along the entire list of photos that was included in the packet, and seeing such great leaders like that have spoken or been a participant in the past really is inspirational. But it's also to me very important to add a couple more males to the group, because it's not only a aspect of there's leaders that can contribute to this dialogue and advance this this discussion, but I do think it's accepting the level of reality that there's going to be a lot more males, at least in the near term, that are going to be able to provide a level of mentorship, and we shouldn't have any type of way that is curtailed. And I think that males who happen to be in leadership positions have to also embrace and look for opportunities to seek out female mentees. And I know that there's some risks with that. I personally have accepted those risks because it's the right thing to do, given the opportunity to pick my team, and I continually over the past couple of positions, whether it was in uniform or out, have had the opportunity, and I've made it a commitment of mine to seek out those that are on the team with me to have as best possible at least half of the representation, if not more, be female. Because I think if we don't have, when we do have the opportunity to do so, and we don't take advantage of those opportunities to ultimately live our values and demonstrate those values, then we miss an opportunity. So I've been able to do that, and I've had a couple of simple rules with doing that. I've been above board and treated everybody the same, and I know that sounds easy and cliched, but I truly through both word and deed do it in that way, and I think that mitigates any type of risk that there's any perception that males are treating females differently when they're either working with them or when they're mentoring them. And when you're mentoring, it does require a level of trust and a level of communication, and those particular things can be perceived in some ways as either favoritism or anything that may be even different than that. So you have to be clear, and you have to set boundaries, and you have to do things in a very overt way to ensure that there's no way that any perception of anything, favoritism or anything else, is involved. And I think what happens when you start doing that is you start demonstrating that there are definite values and positive aspects of what can come of that. And others will start realizing that their responsibility also lies to be able to do those types of things. So I'm interested in any feedback or questions that you may have with regards to how males can better mentor females, and increasingly, as we have increasingly females in leadership positions at the highest levels, again, as I stated from my personal experience of being a company commander, that had a great battalion commander like then Lieutenant Colonel Ann McDonald. I also have had the opportunity to be a subordinate of and mentored by our great Army Secretary, both in uniform and out. So I think that I'm definitely, again, on both sides of the relationship, a major, have benefited significantly from that type of mentorship. So with that, I'll conclude and open up to questions. I think as we go forward, there's a couple of points that maybe we should consider either in the question and answer period, or maybe as you go forward as an organization, of where do you want to take the female mentorship and morale program? How do we envision it in the next year, the next 5 years? And what does it look like? What are the procedures? How is it ingrained in certain aspects of not just our dialogue, but in some of our systems and some of our organizational design and those types of things? I think it's important level of achievement that you've had thus far, but as we go forward, what do we really want it to look like, and how do we want to shape that and build that from now until then? So again, thank you. It's been my honor to offer my perspective, primarily from a personal perspective, but ultimately from my position, I get to reinforce through our Army objectives and our Army initiatives those things that I very much believe in, and it's something that allows me to lead with the level of empathy and passion at the same time. So thank you very much, and back over to the moderators for any questions as we get started. Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much. I mean, the words that you spoke this evening actually resonate with all of us, because that's the purpose of this program. And I'm so glad you asked those questions, because we try to share the vision of where we want to go with why the FMMP, Female Mentoring Morale Program, is so important in many organizations. And just to give you and all the audience a quick answer, it's so much more complex than that. But you actually described the exact reason for the program. As women continue to grow in the military, both civilian and military, some of our opportunities are stunted or just not provided to us because of the fear of our male counterparts that they have with perception of having a female that works for them. Fear of their own home. You know, what's their wife going to think if they have a woman come into a female aide come into their room to pick up their clothes? Nobody thinks about a male aide coming to pick up a uniform and getting them ready at 2 o'clock in the morning to go on a TDY trip. But if a female comes out of the room, you know, there goes the rumor control. And so we have been denied a number of opportunities, to include myself, having the opportunity to be an aide for a senior ranking officer. And I was bluntly told, hey, I would really love to have you. I was one of the top 2. Really love to have you as my aide. However, I'm afraid of the blowback that it's going to get as my aide, where I'm going to go. Now, this was a few years back. I was a major, which helped add to why I wanted to create a platform where there are a number of people that need to know our leaders and our mentors are our most valuable education tool. But we as women are not the only ones that can train us. My mentors growing up were men, because they didn't have a lot of females that were there that I could look up to, that I could say I can emulate myself after. As a PFC, a private first class, private first class Pritchard didn't see an all-female officer I could look up to and say, oh, that's what I want to be one day. But I had male mentors that said, keep going, keep going. But also at the same time, those male mentors had to help me help the others that weren't quite accepting of a female being in my environment, police them. And so as we continue to grow, the program grew because we knew that there were so many different organizations where there are women in there craving mentorship, but for a number of reasons, whether it be the biases that individuals were taught growing up, or the fear of having to appear too close to someone that could appear as favoritism. The platform allows the women to come and address those concerns. So as you remember back in the day when you were in uniform, sensing sessions. I tell people 16 sessions are great, but they're limited in how great they are because I remember as a number of women that used to stand up and say, I have an issue to address in front of people, and they bring up a sexual harassment issue or something that they feel uncomfortable with. And sir, as you know, we all read body language. So in the audience, you see people like, oh, here we go again. You know, that woman has now stopped. She will not address the issue and she will sit down. Now we've just lost someone. And so to answer the question of where we want the program to grow, to what we want it to look like, we are still grassroots because as you know, we sat and talked to the Secretary of the Army. Her fear was that we would take this program and try to make it an Army program, but it would get caught up under the bureaucracy and the regulatory guidelines that could cause it to lose the momentum, lose the effectiveness, and then have parameters placed on it that will prevent us from actually reaching out to the soldiers and the civilians that we reach out to. And so I'm so honored that we have members of chapters from all over. We have someone sitting on here from Germany that is up at midnight, sitting on here, Maddie Easter, who's a first lieutenant who started the program. Well, actually, she was already there are a group of women in Germany, 21st TSC. She's in the 16th Sustainment Brigade. And I say that because this lieutenant said there were some things she said that needed to change. So she reached out to the leadership. She wasn't receiving that much support. Everybody was like in a passive way, absolutely, we'll support, call me when you need me. But she needed that support to help her grow it. Now the 21st TSC exists because that one lieutenant was brave enough to reach out to me and the team, and we all went together and helped her start a chapter. Now they are not only growing, but a commanding general, another commanding general supports it. We have Brigadier General Trombley online. We have a number of leaders that are engaged in growing the program where the environment that they work in and live in is inclusive, is diverse, and is full of dignity and respect. And I say that not as cliche words, but I say that as that's exactly what we want. We want to be treated with dignity and respect. And our brothers in arms are so valuable to that because we have fathers, sons, brothers, nephews, uncles, who, if any of their relatives are treated a certain way that some of our women in formations and in civilian clothes are treated, would immediately go out and want to take action. So our goal is to let the men that wear either the uniform or civilian clothes that work with us, we want them to see us all as their family members. I'm your brother, your sister, your daughter, your mother, your wife, well, not your wife. We'll clear that one up. But we want to make sure that they understand if you treat us like your relative, as a family member, you protect us as a family member. You won't allow others to do the things that they do because we find that people have turned a blind eye to what's happening right under their noses. And so I wanted to take that time to explain for everyone as we get ready to open the dialogue, the vision of the Female Mentoring Morale Program is not to just become an Army program if we are allowed to, but our goal is to ensure that we're touching the soldiers and civilians in each community, which is why it's so important to establish chapters. Because Colonel Pritchard Brown here at 1st TSC now, who started a chapter here at 1st TSC, just left Team Redstone, which Miss Marion Wicker is the leader of the Team Redstone, which I believe is our largest chapter. And that chapter consists of 10 organizations, if I'm not mistaken, ma'am, please feel free to come on and help me with this one. But NASA, SMDC, Corps of Engineers. Ms. Wicker, would you like to come on and say a few words about why the program became so important to the Team Redstone family?
Yeah, thanks, Dee. I appreciate that. Good evening, sir. It's good to see you as always, and welcome to everybody on the line. So at Team Redstone, we had the unique ability with all of these multiple federal services to bring everybody together. So just with the Army writ large, we could have had a huge chapter ourselves with 2 PEOs and an Army contracting center and engineering centers, and as well as headquarters Army Material Command. But we had NASA and we had the FBI and we have the Corps of Engineers. And so our vision for the chapter at Huntsville was to bring a federal perspective to it, and it's done very well. And I'd like to give a shout out. I see she's on here, the CASA from the great state of Alabama, Chris McBride. Chris is our newest CASA, and so Chris is on here, but again, a unique opportunity and not just limiting it to the Army. And so while she won't take a lot of credit, it was under the tutelage and mentoring of Colonel Pritchard Brown, who helped get the Team Redstone FMMP group set up. So Dia, thanks, and thanks for giving us an opportunity to talk about ours.
That's awesome to hear from all of you. And I just want to make sure, and I'll talk to my team here. I think you said it was Maddie, the lieutenant in Germany that's up right now. So
Yes, sir, Madeline Easter.
Okay, I'll make sure my team gets information, and we'll send something. She will get a very rare and coveted Deputy Undersecretary of the Army coin for her, not just her stamina for staying up and late, but her leadership and her ability to make a difference of exactly where she's at in the right place at the right time to do that. So Maggie, the coin will be coming your way. I don't know how quickly it'll get there, but it'll be worth it. So thanks for what you do.
Thank you so much, sir. I truly appreciate that. And that's just one of the many great men and women. And as you see, men are on here too. I'm so honored that the men that I joined in First TSC are not only an advocate for, but they wanted to be on the boards. I have some of the commanders and even our deputy chief of staff, a number of people online tonight. But I will tell you, one of our biggest advocates, when we first started this program, he wasn't able to join tonight. I don't think I saw him join tonight. Lieutenant General Beagle. Well, there's so many to name, but I say Lieutenant General Beagle because after our very first chapter in 6 March 2020, Brigadier General Beagle was the commanding general of Fort Jackson, who started the first chapter after us. And everywhere he went from there, he started a chapter. So he went from Fort Jackson to 10th Mountain Division and then went to CAT, Fort Leavenworth. And his representative tonight is Brigadier General Trombley, who started their chapter a few months ago and has been going strong also. So that's just a testament to everyone understanding why we want to have something that's for each of the organizations internally. Because again, First TSC can't handle a 21st TSC issue. They're in Germany. It's what the leadership on ground can do for their people. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it up before we get into the question and answer. I want to take an opportunity to put everybody that's a senior leader on the spot, because of course you've already mentioned her, but Miss Ann McDonald, which is one of my sheroes out there that every time I see her, this is where I want to be, whether I'm in uniform or not. That's who I want to emulate myself after, also, along with Miss Wicker and everybody else I can think of. But Miss McDonald, Brigadier General retired McDonald, big sister of mine, would you mind coming online and saying a few words? She's almost there. I see the mute button.
There we are. Well, hello, everyone. And I want to say welcome from the United Arab Emirates, where I currently live. And, someone mentioned midnight. I've got to say that I've got you beat. I think it's like 2 or maybe even 3 o'clock. The one thing I love about the Army is that it's really a family. And to see Secretary Diaz, you've grown up, you are magnificent. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your fabulous words this evening. I've scribbled notes down. I've got some thoughts that I want to go forward, but thank you so much, Dia, for the opportunity to address this audience. I'm the president of the Army Women's Foundation. For those of you who don't know, we have partnered with the Female Mentoring Morale Program to be another platform to bring this to the attention of others. So if others don't know about this, it's our way of getting the word out for the monthly meetings and so forth. And we are hopeful, and we know that we have generated an awful lot of interest into this very important program. And it is important. And as the secretary talked about, enforcing versus endorsing. And it goes back to, as he was talking, all I could think about was, the difference between, compliance, because the military or the Army says we have to comply with something, and they give us regulations and they give us rules that we have to follow. But the difference between compliance and true commitment, because it comes from your heart. I am, yes, I want to provide because Title 10 tells me I have to, but I do it because I'm committed to do it. I'm committed to people. I'm committed to making the formation better, stronger. I'm committed to form that union of people who will make our organization stronger. So thank you so much, sir, for your words. Terrific to see you. You look wonderful. You look wonderful. I appreciate your continuing to serve at this level. And I know that there's a lot of responsibility, but sir, you got it. And to Colonel Pritchett Brown and Colonel Pritchett Allen, thank you for your vision. Thank you for doing this every single month, putting your passion and your focus into making a difference for others. And that's all I'll say now. Thanks.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I truly appreciate all the time, every time we see you. And I will tell you, that's a commitment from her and so many senior leaders, both in uniform, out of uniform, retirees, who take the opportunity to help spread the vision. It's not a vision that was ours. It's just an opportunity for us to help contribute to spreading the vision of equality, diversity, inclusion. That's what we want for everyone. And as you all know, I have a twin sister, and that's why I probably covet the family mentorship and the family piece of it so much, because I know how to be a great sister, although sometimes she doesn't think so. But I think the sisterhood is, I look at everyone as my sister or my brother or my aunt, because I want them to know, if I think of you that way, or if you think of me that way, you're going to care about me because I'm your family. And as we all know, we represent each other when we're family, and we all wear that same last name, and it's called U.S. Army. So it's how we treat each other and how we go out and treat our last name, which is U.S. Army, Uncle Sam, when we go out, and we have to treat it with dignity and respect itself. We don't want to go out there and embarrass either ourselves. And we hate seeing the negative news reports in the news about anything about the Army. So I'm going to turn it over to my sister now. She's going to do the question and answer period and allow you all to ask the questions. But I wanted to have that opportunity to just have that quick dialogue to share with you the vision and why we do what we do, sir. So Delia, if you could take over the question and answer period, we can get started on some dialogue. And if you would like to ask questions, raise your hand, or please feel free to put it in the chat room and we'll read it for you. Hey, Delia?
Okay, thank you all so much. So we have one question from an amazing young lady here, Miss Jana Baldwin. I'm going to read just very briefly here. It says, thank you for your comments on enforcing regulations and laws, sir. She wanted to make sure she shared that. She says she's a civilian who recently survived breast cancer. Thank you for sharing that, Jana. But her former leadership in uniform and the Army at large, which continues to shock and horrify her, as there are arguably a mass amount of disabled individuals in and retired from the Army. Now, she shares that not only did not understand the rights and responsibilities of supporting reasonable accommodations for post-cancer, but disregarded her doctor's orders. She wants to know, how does the Army plan to improve inclusion, training, and awareness of individuals of people with disabilities? And she shared that the Army didn't even recognize National Disability Employment Awareness Month, which is this month. But she said she wants to make sure she gives a shout out to General Bradenkamp because he made sure that he did. So she appreciates him for doing that. So, sir, I turn that over to you.
Jana, thank you so much for the question and for just the openness, providing a level of personal experience that obviously is something that you didn't have to do, but it is helpful because it does not only help me understand your perspective, but also, frankly, it highlights something that I will personally make sure that we address, and that we, not only to you personally to get you feedback, but to correct not only the activities and actions that should have been done to properly recognize the month that should be highlighting the importance of accommodation and disabilities, with individuals with disabilities, both in and out of uniform, both serving and retired. This is a personal issue. This is something, again, like we have all highlighted. I'm a father of 3 daughters, and I think that has given me some level of perspective on what what the expectations and how I would want my daughters to be treated and respected and advocated for. So that's where I come from, that perspective. And they're 30, 27, and 25, so they're all adult young women doing great things. But our middle daughter has autism. She's 27 years old, like I said, and we moved her around like most people do who are in the Army for 30 years. And we moved, our particular daughter is 27. We moved her around a total of 9 times. And the challenges associated with a child with autism on the spectrum in the 90s and the early 2000s, and getting treatment and getting the level of resourcing and even diagnosis early on was something that frankly was the challenge. And we have seen steady improvement, but I'm not shocked sometimes when I hear that we have failed as an institution or as a nation to properly address not only the capabilities, but also the rights of individuals with disabilities. So this, to me, hearing this, it's not the first time I've heard this before, but it's still something every time I do hear of instances where we missed the mark. It is disappointing, and it is, from my perspective, unacceptable. So we need to build into our comprehensive aspect of diversity, and really this is where, in some cases, the civilian workforce and the human resources and the leaders in those areas inside of our civilian partners in business or in industry have actually led the way in demonstrating reasonable accommodation for and hiring of individuals with special needs, with other developmental or other physical challenges, and really have made them part of the team. And I think we need to do better as an Army. I think that there's opportunities to do so. Obviously, some may not necessarily be in the uniform side, but we have lots of resources and lots of organizations that would benefit from, as your organization, I'm sure, John, benefits from your participation and ultimate leadership and representation. So I will find a way to reach out to you, get a little bit more information, make sure that that the circumstances you describe are acceptable, and not having the level of support that you should have, and then also rededicate myself and the Army to how we can ensure that we're meeting not just our regulatory requirements of recognizing and advocating for the rights and the responsibilities of or the rights and the participation of those with disabilities, but actually doing it in a manner that is, as we all know, should be with the right spirit to say that we value their participation, we value them being part of the team. So have some work to do on that, but thank you for sharing your story and for highlighting where we need to continue to work.
Thank you so much, sir. I have a question that was sent in to us a few days ago in anticipation of you being here. And it actually goes along the lines of what you spoke of earlier. Male mentorship, male inclusion or involvement in female careers and in advocacy, empathy and advocacy. So I know one of the old questions has been, what about women who have children in the military or government employees that are single parents? Now, we absolutely know men are single parents as well, but there's much more higher percentage of single mothers being in the military or working for the military. And so we're still trying to get leaders to be empathetic of the mothers and fathers, but again, mostly mothers who are the single parents caring for the home while still trying to be soldiers. I myself was a single parent for 8 years after being married. And so the question becomes, from your time in uniform to your time now, have you seen new improvements or new programs or advocacy policies that have improved the life of single parents on a more Army policy scale versus the individual commanders that are the ones that take it upon themselves to assist, afford opportunities for those single parents to go out and care for their families? Because it's so different in different commands. And so I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, no, that's a great question and a very important topic. And I'll just let you in on some of the dialogue and insight that we had at the senior level in the small rooms between the senior civilians and senior uniform folks when we were addressing aspects of this challenge and how we would through not just our intent or other types of support, but trying to codify it in terms of Army policies or regulations and other types of things. And it went around the same timeline that we were addressing expanded time for postpartum and other opportunities for increased time for not just physical recovery, but also bonding with children, both from both parents involved. And this whole dialogue was centered around: is it better to speak to and try to codify it in terms of an actual policy that would be Army-wide, or would we, as you highlighted, ensure that through the guidance that commanders consider and commanders as appropriate and as capable, especially with the dialogue of the soldiers and their families, look for the ways that they can, unique to their organizations, unique to the timing of the requirements, look for better ways to allow single parents to, especially during discrete periods of time, potentially when you have younger children, or maybe there's a transition where there were two parents involved and now there's one parent, and there's that transition where it's a rough period, or maybe there can be an adjustment to an assignment. It can be actually worked out at the local level for different work hour accommodations and other things. We've made some significant steps in terms of our ability to work virtually or remote working or other types of things. And we leave a lot of that up to the individual organizational leadership based on their mission, based on how they're organized, and based on other factors. And I think that is the most appropriate way, because as you know, once you put it into a policy and other types of regulations, that level of specificity in some ways actually confines commanders' ability to make decisions and to accommodate. But this is why it's so important to have empathy as a leadership quality that our leaders have and that they practice. And I want to make it clear, empathy is not sympathy. We're not feeling sorry for anybody. We are just aware of and cognizant of, and then therefore act in accordance with that awareness of our decision making of the individuals and the organizational needs and requirements. So I think that that's the approach that has that our senior leaders have done with regards to this. It's a challenge, I know, and it's something that we have to ensure that we continually assess and see if it's a proper fit, and if is there more specificity that's required in certain regulations, then we certainly need to use not only the this forum or the WIT or others to try to address those, because it is unfortunately something that for the most part falls on the female or women involved. With single parenting, it does have the largest impact on females. So I think that their current approach that we have is about right, but if it's not something that works, we need to make sure that we provide clear recommendations to address this challenge that, again, is probably going to continue to be with us because it is just the set of circumstances of our current, the way that people have life, and sometimes life has those challenges that we have to accommodate for.
Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate that. And so what we're going to do is open it up for some more questions. I know there were a few people that delivered some emails to me wanting to ask questions. I think I see one or two of them on the phone, on the call, but I'm also going to open it up for the leaders. We had a few people join in, and here again, I love putting people on the spot because I know they're always ready to say something great. But I would like to introduce, we have a former Colonel, Army War College buddy of mine. Hopefully she'll start knowing what I'm about to say when I say introduce her name, but she's now a senior executive service civilian. Miss Linda Armour, are you there, ma'am? Can you say a few words? Would you like to add anything? Oh. Oh, did she disappear?
No, I'm still here.
There
I
you
just don't, I can't make my camera work for some reason. So I appreciate it, Dia. And I appreciate this forum. I think it's been great. And to be honest, I think this, what we've talked about is very near and dear to my heart. And I've learned a lot, right? I learned a lot from you at the War College. And so I appreciate what you taught me about mentorship and the importance of that, so that when we see other leaders and want to be them in the future, that we have that opportunity. And so I really do appreciate that. And I think the Army is slowly but surely making strides to support females in leadership opportunities. But I think it's important to have organizations like this to make sure that doesn't get overlooked in the future. So thank you so much for doing this.
You're so welcome, ma'am. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And we have a hand up. We see a few hands up, but I'm going to go in order. I see Miss Kanisha Wright. Miss Wright, Kanisha, if you want to come off mute and ask your question.
Hi, if you guys can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay. My question was, well, I was trying to type it, but you said I could speak now. Is more about how important or what can we do to have more, because like in my MOS, we don't have a lot of females, and we definitely don't have a lot of females who look like me. And I've only met one other female NCO. She's a Sergeant First Class, and I didn't even know that was her job, that she had the same job as me. And like, to me, that even made me be more closer to her, because she understood how hard it is, especially when I work on weapons, and it's mostly a very male dominated MOS. And I was surprised that I even saw other females doing my job. So I just wanted to know, like, how important, or like how can we get more women who are doing my job, or at least doing a job that's more male dominated, to see how we can try to get more females to that particular unit, or that base or something like that, so they have more interaction with them. So then if they feel like they're not being seen or heard, that they have someone to like be able to get to, even if they're not in the same unit as them. That's really what my kind of question is.
And so, sir, I think that's a recruiting question, and that's also a marketing question. But I will let you shape it the way you want to. But I just hear a recruiting. How do we even get more women in your MOS? So, sir, I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It is both a recruiting, marketing, and I think it's also important to highlight that it is an experience that many of us have had. Nisha, that first of all, congratulations on being part of an important part of our Army and making a difference. And sounds like you like it. Sounds like that you do it well. And I think that is one, or those two aspects are so important for ensuring that there'll be more folks like you that will follow in your footsteps. By doing it well and by standing out and by being a role model, you will, if you don't have folks that are role models that look like you will become that role model for others. And the aspect of how we need to ensure that we can get other females in particular into your MOS is something that we continually look at as opportunities to ensure we reach out and say that there are over 200 ways to serve, and there are no limitations for anyone to serve. And the more and more that we can show that, and maybe we can even find a way to highlight you and your story, because it is a marketing aspect. And if you have seen the most recent Be All You Can Be commercial of the soldier who is the gunner in a M1 Abrams and launching a round down range, she happens to be a tank crew member and a female, and that was very specific and deliberate, that we wanted to demonstrate that those opportunities are open, because there are a lot of people that not only who have served in the Army that have recent experience, they may think that that's not open, but more importantly, to those that potentially want to serve in the Army, we wanted to demonstrate that those opportunities are there. So don't be surprised if we follow up with you, and we send a team to take some photos and maybe a video of you, and you get highlighted for the great work that you're doing. And then, you know, we can say, if you want to be like this great soldier, if you want to make a difference and be like Anisha, sign up, because she needs sisters in arms to make a difference too. So keep on doing that great work. And you know, if you don't have folks right now that look like you or share your experiences, just keep doing well, and you'll be surprised what you inspire. And that's what's motivated me in the past. And thankfully that there's a few more folks that have followed in my footsteps, where there may not have been, you know, too many brigade combat team commanders who look like me or shared my experiences, but thankfully there's a little bit more now.
Well, so that was a wonderful answer, and I've got her name down, sir. If you think we need to link up with her later on. So,
Great.
sir, we have Miss Wicker's hand up. Miss Wicker, would you like to say something?
Yeah, good evening again, sir. So one of the things that you'd mentioned in your opening comments that struck me was talking about male mentors for females, and you talked about risk, because you do it. And you know, I've talked to a lot of males that want to be mentors for females, but they're unsure of that risk. And so, you know, we do have some men on the call. And is there something that you could give them in terms of guidance, or how you do it, or how you get comfortable with doing it for the men on here that, you know, probably want to be a mentor to female, but also want to operate in a safe space, if you will? Thank you.
Oh, great question, Marion, and I do think it's important. I do think it does involve risk, but we take prudent risk all the time, because it's the right thing to do to make a difference. And there's a great book called Athena Rising that addresses specifically the issue of males mentoring females, and it's a very good practical book about not just why it's important, but it gives, you know, techniques on how to address those risks and mitigate them. And change the perception of what it means to be a mentor as a male to a female. I would say that there's a couple of things that I highlighted. Like I said, make meetings routine that you have with that mentee. And it's not something that's, you know, haphazard or anything like that. It is scheduled, and it's public. So it's on your public calendar. You say you're having a mentorship meeting with Jane Doe, and you know, and it's very clear. You make an if it's appropriate, which I do think it is, you introduce yourself and include the family or the significant other of the individual, and you know, you reach out to them, and you make them part of not only the experience but the dialogue in some cases. You ensure that that there's no perception of favoritism at all, and you look for opportunities to mentor others on a similar, equal iteration and pace, and you know, in similar ways, right? You don't have one mentor that happens to be a female that you always go out to a bar and you do the mentorship there, and then the male mentor you do in the gym, or you do in your office or something like that. So I think that those are very practical ones. It's not being a prude, or you're not trying to say that I can only talk to women, and mentor women, if there's somebody in the room or those types of things. I think that it's fully acceptable to have a closed door session and to do it in a manner that, so you can have candor and those types of things. But you have to have boundaries, and you have to set those boundaries and live those boundaries like you would with any other set of circumstances. And don't treat males and females differently when you do establish those boundaries. I think that that's critically important. The book that I saw a question, is called Athena Rising. I forget the name of the author, but if you Google that or go on Amazon, it'll show up, and it's a very recent and important book that addresses this particular issue. And I've been hearing, what's interesting too is I've pulsed a couple of my former subordinates. Not only, my XO Maria is female, my senior advisor is female. A couple other members of my staff are female here. When I was chief of staff, my SGS was female. I reached out to her and asked her, and she highlighted a couple of the types of things that she said that what I did in to define the way that I treated her and mentored her and provided that level of structure to that process and that ultimate relationship was something that she really valued, and it really kept things where there was no perception at all. So she really appreciated that. And she also did talk to the similar type of issue of her herself being turned down for later jobs and previous jobs because there was, for lack of a better term, not the courage for the male to hire her because they felt that it would just be too much of an issue. So we have to confront that and have very clear ways to make sure that that doesn't continue, because that can't become the norm, because we're missing opportunities on both sides of the mentor and mentee relationship if we continue to have those as barriers. Over.
Hey, sir, thanks for a great answer. So we got 3 things out of there, if you don't mind. So you gave us an awesome answer about how to handle that. You gave us a book to read to add to our book list. And I think maybe that's something, Dia, we should start doing is putting some books on there, leadership books. And then the last thing, on behalf of the women that you have taken the time to mentor and you're living the model that you're talking about today. And so I just can't thank you enough for that. Over.
All right, great. So we've got a couple of more questions in the chat box, and we have Lieutenant Colonel Lee who wants to ask a quick question. Mari, I'm going to ask these 2 quick questions here, or would you like to go and get yours first?
Go ahead, yours is first.
Okay, all right. So we've got one. Dawn in our chat box asked a very good question. Sir, has the Army considered implementing a policy requiring a family care plan for all parent soldiers? And the reason for this question is you've got some soldiers who have to depart or leave their family to become a GO bachelor. Well, that family member at home who's keeping the child is really the family care plan. Well, if there's something that happens and that spouse or that person keeping the child has to do something as an emergency, they don't have any other kind of recourse to have a family care plan to reach out to. Is there something where the Army would consider implementing a family care plan or a policy requiring family care plans for all parent soldiers?
That's a great point, and I think something that we should probably take a hard look at, because there's for lots of reasons, the ones that you highlighted that Dawn posed in her question, or why it's important that those circumstances. But I do also think that the reality is that we may treat dual parents differently than single parents. And I think that we wouldn't do that for a lot of things. And I think that that process for having a family care plan if you even do have two parents, would force is probably not the right approach. It would be something that would get to the level of consideration where they are doing prudent planning, and just like we would for any other aspect of professional requirements or services, to make sure that we address them in a level of equal ways. And for the circumstances that may unfortunately happen, they may have to execute those family care plans, even though they had a very straightforward and care plan by a parent remaining once the other soldier is deployed or other aspects of mission requirements dictate, because things can change. So I think that that's a point that we should take, and we should, see if that's ever been considered, and the reason why that it hasn't been considered. I can make sure that the Army staff or the right person within the Secretariat gives me that feedback, and I'll pass it to all of you, so you can at least have the feedback of if it was ever considered, and then why it was not actually implemented, or maybe that's something that we put into consideration, and we and then assess how best to put that into a policy or a regulation. So thanks for the question.
Great. Thank you for that answer, sir. So we have one more question here. It's coming from Jamie Davis. And sir, as you know, our platforms, we get at some of the questions and some of the topics that are most concerning to us. So she has a very, very good question here that she has a major concern about. And so Jamie says that she works at USACE, and last week, a senior leader gave a presentation, which included a slide about USACE's campaign plan, which contains 4 elements. Under element number 2, modernize USACE, it listed increasing diversity, which is what we're talking about. We were in a room of almost entirely white people and about 70% of men. And I said, I look around this room and I don't find it particularly diverse. So I'm interested in hearing more about the specific efforts to make our organization more diverse. Now, and when she said that, she said the presenter basically had no answer other than we make sure our hiring panels are diverse. Then she said her last interview was conducted by a panel of 3 white males. So she said that has not been her experience. So just providing that as a comment and an area for possible improvement. She said the presenter also said he thought the room was quite diverse in his opinion. His response was disappointing and discouraging. And so that sometimes tends to be the comments for a number of people. I will tell you real quickly, I was a battalion commander. I was the only female, and I was the only minority out of 18. And so that, again, in this day and age, we know the Army is working on this, but there are still concerns and challenges in the unit. So, sir, I'll turn that question over to you.
Well, thank you for the question and for, again, the candor, and again, this is why we have these types of forums, not to shy away from or not to try to speak in terms that are in and around, but to be straightforward and to confront these concerns, highlight the challenges, and then at least make sure that they're understood and we can go forward, or if during the discussion here we can actually develop a workable way ahead. I don't know if we're going to do that for this one, obviously, but it is important to hear because that experience and your experience as well, Dia, is something that, frankly, I've experienced. When I asked a couple of subordinates to give me some feedback who happened to work for me and be female, that was an exact same quote. I'm reading it from her, where she talked about, she happened to work in a brigade support battalion, and the level of diversity within the brigade support battalion was very diverse, and lots of different representation of racial, ethnic backgrounds, gender, etc. But when she looked in the larger brigade combat team, it was virtually none. So I think that there's still those types of the fact that it's still a reality that we have to, through aggressive policies that provide opportunities and ensure that those opportunities are executed in a way that we can't have pay pools or board representation or other types of forums that are charged with recruiting talent or promotion or other types of activities be anything but the most diverse possible. And in some ways, I'll be honest with you, in some ways, it's surprising that still happens, and we don't just stop the process, because we know that is something that we have to learn from. You know, I'll tell you, I was in the Army for 30 years, as was highlighted. I was, selected early a couple of times. Battalion and brigade commander, was actually selected for general officer and served in 3 general officer positions, but didn't actually pin on the rank, and that's a whole nother story for a whole nother opportunity to discuss. But it obviously didn't impact me as significantly because I'm in this position, so it wasn't anything illegal or immoral. It was just something that, frankly, some people have to deal with. And it also taught me some great lessons about being able to deal with setback and failure. But I will tell you, in 30 years of that trajectory of a career and being of a racial ethnic background that is primarily Hispanic, but also African-American, I was never asked and have never participated on a promotion board. And I thought to myself, wow, they must have a whole bunch of other people that look like me to have them represent on a promotion board. And I say that facetiously because they don't, and they didn't back then. And so I understand that sometimes, even with our best intentions, even with our best policies in place, that we still get some things wrong and we still miss the boat. So thank you for the question. And again, thank you for highlighting. And again, it's not a lick or a cut against USACE. There's unbelievable leadership in USACE. There's unbelievable diverse levels of leadership that are engaged and are empathetic and that are great leaders in our Army. It just happened, I understand that circumstance involved that unit, but that could be in lots of different units, unfortunately, in our Army and in some of our official processes, like I said, for board selection. So again, all I could promise to you is that we'll look at this and make sure that those particular types of instances, especially when we highlight that it is part of our either campaign plan or other activities, that we could talk to where we're at in that level of achieving that objective and what our goals are and how we're going to get there. I think that would have probably been a more appropriate answer to say that maybe we are not there where we need to be for diversity. We're currently at X. We want to be at X plus 50 in the next year and then or the next time that we assess this particular aspect of our campaign plan. So thank you again for that. And in some ways disappointing, but also important to talk about.
Dia, I think you're on mute. You're on mute, Mute.
Okay, thank you so much. Sir, thank you so much for that. And to hear from an Army senior leader to just be so candid and transparent helps us realize that there are people up there that identify and understand and are trying to make a difference. And so from your days in uniform to your days as a civilian, we even had a question someone asked that briefly, which we don't have to go into because of the time, but what was the transition like from going from a apolitical colonel or apolitical soldier to now being a political appointee or a secretary, deputy undersecretary? So those are many different things. I know that the transition of your life has gone, but the fact that you're still passionate and still willing to give your time to addressing the questions that we have. So many people think that when you're in we call echelons above reality, that we wouldn't get a chance to talk and dialogue with individuals and know that they truly care. Because for the most part, the myth, the stereotype is get to a certain level, they just don't care anymore. But we know you all care. We truly appreciate you, the Secretary of the Army, the senior leaders that are out there that have committed their time to doing this. So, sir, I'm going to open it up to you for final comments. And again, I thank you so much. And on behalf of the FMMP Executive Board, the entire chapters, thank you for your time. So, sir, any final comments?
Well, yes, and just thanks again to the leadership team and what you have done, your passion, how you led with a level of unbelievable passion and grace and getting after something that's so important. And I know you're going to continue to make a difference. I just have 2 points. One is with regards to the transition of being a very apolitical career officer and now serving as a political appointee. And again, I'm not a political person. The opportunity to do this was something that was a nexus of both opportunity and passion. And I still had, as I alluded to, some gas left in the tank to make a difference. And I knew if I couldn't do it in uniform, that I could take that passion and continue on and make a difference. And I'll be very honest with you, there's been other opportunities to do other things inside the Department of Defense, inside the organization to be outside of the Army and technically move up. But I've turned those down because I think I'm in the right place at the right time to make a difference. I'm at some point gonna stop being the Deputy Undersecretary of the Army, and what I did on my watch will be remembered by my those who know me and those who don't know me but know of me, and will judge how I did during that time, because it's still going to be a part of me. I'm not going to move on and do other things. I will still always be a member of this tribe, and the Army is my tribe. So I take a unique perspective on how I do things as a political appointee. The second thing is, I think somebody spoke to a previous relationship where you served together, and now somebody's a senior executive or somebody's still in doing uniform stuff. And I alluded to how General McDonald was my battalion commander, and also spoke about other couple examples. I think it's so important to ensure that as we lead, regardless of where we lead and at what level and for how long we do it with an eye on doing it for the right reasons and maintaining your honor and keeping your reputation. And I say that, and you may hear and think of it like saying, yeah, no kidding, sir, we always do that. But it's so important on how we do it. There are multiple circumstances, and some of you that are listening may experience this or have experienced this. But for my leadership trajectory, there are so many folks who I have had a professional relationship where I was a subordinate of theirs, and then at another time I was a peer of theirs, and by just the circumstances of way things work out, I'm now in a superior position of them by rank and authority and whatever you want to call it. But I would like to say, and I think that the best compliment that I've ever been given is that I didn't change in any of those types of transitions. So I was the same type of leader and the same type of person with the same approach, and treated people the same way, whether I was a subordinate, whether I was their peer, or whether I was in a position of authority over them. And I think that that's something that we should all strive for. That's something that keeps me grounded, because who knows, there may be somebody out there that I may work for you one day. And I would like to hope that the way that I conduct myself won't be any different if and when, and I actually hope and pray that I may work for one of you one day. And I think that that is a leadership quality that we should all strive for. I look in the mirror every day and try to maintain that as my North Star and my standard. So again, thank you. It's been my honor. These types of things are worth every minute. And if you ever are out and about in the Pentagon, or hopefully I'm out and about and get a chance to cross paths with you, please say hello. Please say that we got a chance to share some time on a Zoom call. And more importantly, keep on leading with distinction and keep on being all that you can be. We need you so much. So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you so much, sir. And honestly, we would all be honored to continue to be on your team, no matter what uniform you wear, your urban camouflage, which is your civilian clothes. Sir, again, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining in tonight. I don't know if you'll ever have an opportunity to have one of these great momentous occasions, but sir, we are truly honored. And so with that, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. We have a recording. So for those that were missed it, we have that. We'll put it on our FMNP Facebook page to make sure everybody understands the great dialogue we had tonight. Again, sir, God bless. Thank you so much. And everyone have a blessed weekend. Take care.
Thank you, Dia.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Really always appreciate the great dialogue you have. You're wonderful. And all of you, thank you all for joining in. You know, you could have been somewhere else, but you were here with us. And so we appreciate just the fact that you want to. It's because we know you have that same passion to get out there and lead others. So ma'am, thank you for your leadership. And as everybody knows, we're always the last to sign off. So please feel free. And we open the dialogue. If anybody has any questions or conversations, just know that you're able to stay on if you'd like to, but we're going to let everyone sign on off. I think we're down to the last few. Hey, Mark.
Hey guys, just want to come in and say hello. How you doing, everybody?
Wonderful.
Doing great, sir. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing awesome, doing awesome. You know, one of the things I share with people, and I shared this story like oogahs of times is, and I shared this with the DUSA, is as my mentor, my late mentor, the late General Colin Powell, as he says in his bio, one of the things I think we miss is this thing called that he termed, that I love it, called humane leadership. I don't know if you heard that term. And one of the things that was his personal story, he was Second Lieutenant Powell. And that Second Lieutenant Powell, they were out in the field, and we know what happens when you misplace your weapon. So he was out in the field, and Second Lieutenant Powell misplaced his weapon. And of course, he's like, I'm done. That's it. Him and his sergeant tried to look for it. His team could not find it. And says, well, I'm already finished before I even get started. Let me just go to my company commander and just call it a day. And so he gets to his company commander, and I think it's Captain Tom Williams. But my point is this. So the captain hears him out. He says, I was expecting you, Lieutenant Powell. And the whole day had gone by, of course. And he said, I was expecting you, Lieutenant Powell. He said, yes, sir. I've lost my weapon, and tells him the circumstances. He hears him out. And after he let him sweat for about 10 minutes sharing his story, the XO reaches out and hands the weapon to the captain. And the captain says, and he slams it kind of, firmly puts it back into his hand. He says, for God's sake, son, don't let it happen again. Now, what if that captain didn't do that? We would not have had the first Black chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff. We wouldn't have had the first Black Secretary of State. So, I share this all the time, particularly when I'm on with other leadership, because I think GOMARs are so subjective, and we put out so many potentially good people. And there's much behavior I call recoverable behavior. Even certain DUIs and fights are recoverable, And so I share with leaders, take an extra look at that, and let's really dig into certain circumstances. I can't tell you a couple of times I've intervened. Praise God for my ministry of being a CASA, to kind of short that and kind of bring to the GO's attention. Did you know the reason that this captain promotable is going through such and such is because they lost a child? How would we feel if we lost our only child and wonder why this person's in therapy? And the GO is like, oh, I didn't know that. Why don't you know that? Why didn't your staff judge or JAG share with you the totality? of why this person is going through what they're going through. So again, back to my point without going on and on, humane leadership, right?
Mm-hmm. I
Right.
actually heard him tell that story one night on a Rocks event, and it was just as moving to hear you say it as when he said it the first time, and it's absolutely true. And it's something that
Amen.
we have to, as leaders, go out and say, put yourself in that person's shoes. You know, was it intentional? Is it a learning opportunity or experience? Is it something that's recoverable? And so it's always great to hear you and to know that the thoughts and the opportunities to learn from other people's stories is out there. That's why we are such advocates about
Absolutely.
people telling their stories. You don't
Absolutely.
tell
And
it,
that's
no one will know you they went through the same thing.
absolutely. And to the Deuce's point, empathy, right? To the Deuce's point. That's what it boils down to. But always a pleasure, everyone. Always a
Thank you
pleasure.
so much. It's so
Always
great
good
to see you.
Definitely.
Likewise.
Thank
Be
you.
Take
Thank you.
safe.
care.
God bless. Have a great weekend. Well, I say weekend because after Thursday, it's just a Friday, and then you're in the weekend. So
Yes, ma'am.
take
All
care.
right.
Enjoy. God bless.
Bye-bye. You too.
Bye-bye.
Hold on 1 second, guys.
Okay.
We'll stop the recording.